I was bored and drunk, so I peed in my own mouth to see what it was like. What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? I work in advertising as a 3D lighter for very high-profile clients like Apple, Google, Facebook, etc. My job is to ensure that every bit of computer-generated imagery is textured and lit in a way that matches how it would look in real life. Funny thing is I'm severely red-green colorblind. The only way I can tell what color something is supposed to be is by sampling a pixel on the screen and reading out the red, green and blue values. I've nearly memorized the hue numbers from 0 to 360 and where things fall in the rainbow chart. I've had shots come back to my inbox telling me that something that's supposed to be red looks too brownish green or something that's supposed to be dark green looks purple. I always say I accidentally had a hue shift on it at render time or make up some funny excuse like the lighting info from the shoot had a weird tinge to it. I've been doing this for 7 years now and the only people who know are my girlfriend and best friend and family. This wouldn't exactly ruin my life, but it's something I'm ashamed of and my friends would never be able to see me the same again. A while ago, I was very depressed and on meds for something I didn't even have. On top of that, I had been sexually abused and was very confused about my sexuality, still kinda am TBH. On top of that, I had an unhealthy obsession with a certain celebrity. It was a bizarre infatuation, a combination of hatred fueled by jealousy and obsessed fascination. I reveled in my identity as a real-life yandere. It all culminated in me fantasizing about what it would feel like to murder him. It would be the ultimate act of sexual dominance, to have his life under my ultimate control. I would stalk him at a convention, sneak backstage at a panel and enjoy the confused look in all of his pathetic fangirls' eyes as I took away their hero's life and then my own. Fortunately, little time passed between me starting to habitually have this disturbing fantasy and finally getting meaningful help. I stayed in an outpatient mental health rehab program for a month and worked on the underlying problems causing me to have these desires, being socially isolated, having few meaningful friendships, and being sexually confused. For a long time, I had to stop seeing this person's content to prevent a relapse in hateful thoughts. Now, though, I'm perfectly able to watch their videos with no ill effects. However, I will never be able to forget the strange and confusing feelings I had towards them. I feel like I understand the mentality behind acts of public violence a little better now. My abusive dad gave me a car as an apology for being such a fucker as a college grad gift and I accepted it. If people found out I did this, my true stories of how much I hate him would seem fake. The fact of the matter is, I actually forgave him because he stopped drinking and said things only a truly sorry person would. People don't seem to understand that even though I forgave him, he still used to smother me with a pillow and talk about me inappropriately. It doesn't change the past. All it means is I took blood money. I wanted a car so I could drive to work and now I'm doing really well for myself living 4K miles away from him. I thought of it as reparations, but when I tell people they think I'm some sort of demented liar. I made about 50 grand filming porn. Paid for college and haven't gone back to it. I would almost consider it as a fallback, but if it got out it would royally fuck up my current career. Thankfully this was from a day and age when pseudonyms actually kept people anonymous. I paid off my student loans writing smut, and I mean real smut. Kinky, fetish, no plot stroke books. I loved every last second of it. Then I switched to writing mostly wholesome romances under a new pen name. I doubt very much that my readers would enjoy the crossover, although who knows? I sent in the form for one of those 90s era CD subscription things where you get 5 free but have to pay so much a month after that. I purposely spelled my last name wrong so when the bill came and my mom freaked out I could say, "Mom, this bill isn't for Jane Doe, it's for Jane Doe." I totally got away with my scam and my uncensored copy of Eminem. Maybe it wouldn't ruin my life in the traditional sense. I was molested for years by my mom's favorite cousin. I have to see him for every family event, and even though I'm in my 20s, being in his presence, let alone him touching me, makes me feel 4 all over again. If it came out, I am pretty sure my family would take his side. More seriously, I worked at a giant company as a picker. I discovered that through an easy exploit, I could pick 2 to 3 items an hour and still hit curve. Because everyone there is an idiot, they never questioned it and I was eventually promoted. The position after that had me training hundreds of people in the warehouses, I discovered that my predecessor did shit all and didn't do the paperwork for anyone. I made the mistake of telling my boss, so the job of fixing 7 years of missing paperwork fell on me. Discovering it was a project destined to fail and hating the company, I made up hundreds of fake paperwork and filed them / entered them into the system. Again, because where I worked everyone is an idiot, no one noticed for the 3 years I worked at the company despite much of it not making any sense. Some of the names are signed ha 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 fuck you, I hate this place. I got further promotions for my productivity and did the same thing across multiple facilities. By my estimate, roughly 30 to 40% of the company's Canadian records are obvious BS, yet I was never fired or found out. I've just been kicked out of uni, not for academic reasons but because my mother attempted to kill herself and my mental health got rock bottom as a result. I currently live with my old man who has told me a number of times the only reason he can bear having me around is that I am studying, and he sympathizes with how hard it is to study and work. I'm kinda terrified to tell anyone as a result because becoming homeless is a rather scary prospect. I cheated on a spelling test in grade 4 of primary school, and was awarded the grade's Best Speller Award at the end of year assembly. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I've always wanted to let this out, so here it is. Muslim. Wears the hijab. Lesbian. I come from a very well-known family in the community, so if this ever came out, not only would it ruin my life but also my parents, especially my mom since she's an Islamic teacher and a lot of people come to her for advice. If I hear "Why aren't you married yet? One more time I'm gonna kill myself." Was basically an escort. Technically a sugar baby, but in reality, it is just glorified escort. The only difference is that we would go to eat dinner before fucking. Made $500 per date. I've been telling my parents I've been going to college for the past 2 years, but I'm actually just harvesting and selling large quantities of weed with my ex-girlfriend's dad and putting all the profits into a savings fund. My boyfriend's uncle raped me before we got together. I don't doubt that he would believe me and be there for me, but it's something I don't want to deal with and have to rehash. I dealt with it, I'm okay with it, and it's over. I no longer believe in my religion, and my family and extended family are insanely integrated into it to the point that I would be shunned and disowned for following anti-lies and leaving the church. Despite what my employer, and friends believe, I'm not really a person. I'm just a self-aware Reddit sock puppet account that gained sentience in 2015 and has been posting ever since. I hate 60% of the people in my life. Some days, the masquerade isn't as blatant. Or I just act all sarcastic with it. So whenever old friends message me, "Oh, it's been so long since we've met," part of me is like, yeah, I know. That's the plan. But I love a good 20% though. Those I would do almost anything for. I created the very first MAFAQ for StarCraft, Brood War, and released it within hours of the game's release. It turns out the game was functionality identical to the original game with new assets. On a hunch, I found that I could just hex edit an existing Chinese MAFAQ for the original game, and internally replace StarCraft's executable name with Brood Wars. And it worked. I used a resource editor to completely change the UI and make it look original. I didn't code anything. To advertise, I flooded every BattleNet channel with bots, each using name variations of I's and L's, which looked identical at the time. A dozen bots per channel, joining, posting, and leaving within a split second. No one, including the admins, could ban me, and if they managed to catch one, the others would continue. At the peak I was flooding every channel at 10 posts a second, making chat impossible. This was from a dial-up connection, so I eventually needed my phone and had to stop after a few solid days of shutting down the BattleNet chat. Blizzard changed the BattleNet's font because of me, and added text commands for channel control instead of mouse-only click control. My wife was a prostitute when I met her 12 years ago. Nobody except a couple of her friends knows this. I'm glad we didn't let that get in the way. For 9 months of my life, I was the accountant/numbers guy in a car theft ring. I got absorbed into the wrong crowd. One night, I came super close to being caught, and the next day, I completely removed myself from the operation, then moved back home. Maybe not ruined, but I don't know. I don't tell people in my real life that I'm bipolar except for a chosen few. I'm in a management position kind of thing at work, and I'd rather them not find out there is a crazy person in charge of men and jobs. There is a huge stigma surrounding bipolar disorder. People know or have known someone who has had it and they went crazy. It is both true and false. I have had to be hospitalized and stayed in a cell away from other people, I'm told, for 2 weeks. But I'm not a danger to myself or others because I know a lot more now and the signs leading up to me getting that far. In 3rd grade, I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my Uncle Max's toupee and I glued it on my face when I was Moses in my Hebrew school play. 5th grade, I knocked my sister Edie down the stairs and I blamed it on the dog. When my mom sent me to the summer camp for fat kids and then they served lunch, I got nuts and I pigged out and they kicked me out. But the worst thing I ever did, I mixed a pot of fake puke at home and then I went to this movie theater, hid the puke in my jacket, climbed up to the balcony and then, I made a noise like this, hoo-wah 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 wah, and then I dumped it over the side, all over the people in the audience. And then, this was horrible, all the people started getting sick and throwing up all over each other. I never felt so bad in my entire life. Here's my deepest, darkest secret. Ever since I started working, every single day of my life has been worse than the day before it. So it means that every single day that you see me, that's on the worst day of my life. And before you ask, yes, today is the worst day of my life. Throw away because of reasons. I'm a sadist and a dom. I'm not talking about I like a little rough play, I'm talking about the way their blood tastes, heavily bruising. Can't walk right, hurts to sit. Knives, whips, all sorts of stuff like that. As well as CNC etc. I enjoy all that stuff. I work in human services and want to be a teacher. My family would probably disown me. So yeah, that shit is locked down tight. I sold counterfeit shirts on eBay for a few years. I designed and produced them myself. Better than the real thing in most cases, because my designs were more appealing than what was currently available by those companies. Using my trash account for obvious reasons. Not ruin my life, per se, but I could easily ruin my big brother's life in less than a day. When I was 7 to 8, my big brother experimented on me several times. I haven't said anything because at the time I actually enjoyed it. Right now my brother has 2 daughters and is waiting for a son with his wife. If word got out, he'd lose his kids and his wife would probably leave him as she was sexually assaulted as a child herself. I planned and executed the perfect heist. I got a job at my local bank and every week they would give me money, and after giving a cut to Her Majesty I got to pocket the rest. I did this for 40 years, then one day I handed in some paper and I just walked out the front door. They still don't know what hit them. This is more my husband's secret, and I literally discovered it tonight and it's going to ruin my life even if it doesn't come out. My formerly loving and reliable husband has dropped his family and gone into the party and drug scene. Tonight I discovered that he is probably selling coke or meth. I am going to have to leave with my 5-year-old son. This was a man who was viewed as a stand-up guy and very intelligent. People love him. I hit a smallish lottery, tilled a few mills, a little while back and told absolutely no one, family and friends included. I took a bunch of steps to secure my kids' futures and we live a very comfortable but not lavish life. I'm pretty generous with the people around me. I think that they just think I'm doing very well career-wise, or something illegal under the table. I paid for college writing other people's papers. I paid off some friends' debt with T2. There are several people who work for Fortune 500 companies that only have their degrees because of me. There are 3 millionaires that wouldn't exist had I not written their theses. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.